What is going on, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of the Busy Bariatric Podcast. I'm your host, Rob D'Amedio, and I am so excited to bring you my first ever guest on the podcast. This is kind of like a very special interview for me. I got the chance to meet Bill first at WLSFA. It was my first public speaking event on bariatric surgery. Where I was invited to talk and speak. And to say that I was nervous was an understatement. But one of the best parts of the experience was I got to meet Bill in person. And I got to hear Bill speak on a variety of subjects. And it was just such an impressive thing as one man to another, as someone who has not just had bariatric surgery and is further down the road than me, but really has made this a passion project and a calling and has done all the amazing things from public speaking to bike riding across America, up to Ohio and doing everything. And it's just been so cool to watch his story. He's totally a hero of mine, and I am flubbing all over because I am giddy with excitement to welcome you and to welcome Bill Streetman to the podcast. Bill, thanks for being like my first guest.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's, when you're the first one, I used to, in business, I used to say, I always want to be first because you're the best they've seen yet. And from there, people have to think backwards to remember if you were not good enough.
I promise you the podcast will only go down from here, people. So this is probably going to be the best we do, and then we'll go. But
yeah, Bill, I think that, but I'm very happy to be here and very happy that you invited me. And thank you for your kind words earlier. But believe me, it was every bit as much about I can't wait to meet him as you just expressed for me. So
yeah. So Bill, for those who don't know your full story, can you kind of just give us the quick rundown of, were you always obese? Was this something that came up on you? When did you realize you needed bariatric surgery?
Well, I was really as a teenager and in my early 20s, I was in very good shape. I was a dancer, a gymnast. I taught dance and gymnastics. I ran long distances. I was just kind of typical tall and trim guy. Wasn't real strong.
Had that Lynn Swan physique, I'm guessing, with all that dance and everything, able to move, agile.
Yeah. Wow. Once I got married, had kids, started my career, I traveled nonstop, and it allowed, or it caused, or I allowed it to cause me to stop doing the things that I did that resulted in a tall, trim, athletic young man. And instead, I did the things that resulted in a weight gaining, now kind of middle-aged man, and eventually overweight, obese 54-year-old. So
can we talk a little bit there? Because I think it's one of those that from coaching clients, there always seems to be this big hurdle of travel. How do I come and handle my routine, and how do we do everything? I know from my personal experience, I had your typical New Jersey teacher lifestyle where it's like I taught in Philly Public and then I got an admin job one town over. But it was a private school that allowed me to travel. And a lot of my weight gain came from being on the road and having to fly a lot. Not that the flight necessarily did it, but it was like, oh, I'm in a rare city. I'm going to eat all the decadent things. I'm going to drink all the fancy drinks. And next thing you know, I gained like 40 pounds in a year just from travel. Why does travel throw us off so much, in your opinion?
Almost impossible. It's very difficult to create routines. I grew up in a hospital where my dad was home at 5:30 every night. Dinner was on the table at 5:35. That is not the household that my kids grew up in or that I raised them in. So it's very difficult if you're traveling a lot like that to develop habits and routines, except the bad ones. The bad ones are easy to develop because they're all there.
I feel like vices are always so easy to creep in because the habit and routine can take a week to build, and all it takes is like the weekend to be like, nah, I'm going to throw this out and start again on Monday.
Yeah. And of course, even if you do that, 2 out of 7 is 28% of your life. So you can't get ahead with that ratio.
I think people don't understand that either, is this idea of I'm going to be like a saint Monday to Thursday. And then even if they're like, okay, we'll take Sunday night to clean up and part of Friday and kind of do the Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, you're shooting at about a 72%. And I know when I coach my clients, I try to teach them like, that's okay for C results. And that's me not trying to be mean, but that's about a C if you look at the average percentage, even if you just broke it down to breakfast, lunch, dinner, 3 meals a day and going for that.
Yeah, and I guess you have to know what you want out of it. I've met people that if they can get to that point, man, that's success and they're happy. And to them, I say, good, great, awesome. Now go live your life and do the things you want to do. But part of the being freed from the obesity is that you couldn't do so many things. It wasn't that you said, I don't want that, or I don't like that. It's you can't. You have to be this weight or this round or, all the different requirements. And now you're freed from all that. So, man, I don't want to even settle for normal. Sometimes I want to go out and do extreme, to some extent, because before I was told, nope, can't do this. And now I'm going to go do it. There's kind of that element to me in my personality. But if yours is, I want to attain this level of normalcy and kind of blend in, you can do it. That's your goal. Go get it.
I think that's really a great perspective to have, because so many times I think we see on social media, or we are given this message of you need to live this like extreme bodybuilder, or you're bike riding like 52 miles a day, or you're bench pressing a Buick. When I think the bigger win for the majority of the bariatric community is actually just to be hidden in plain view. It's almost the best compliment you can get is they don't know that you've had bariatric surgery, where you're just kind of viewed as, I wasn't a bigger man, I'm not a former big man. That's just a dude. And I think for me, my daughters went to one school and then that school closed, so they went to another school. And the people at the new school only know me as this, I hate to say it, but like normal looking person. Like, they know I'm athletic, but they have no idea I had 365 pounds on this frame. And I almost find myself doing these weird things. Like, I work it into conversation where it's like, I used to be really fat, and I don't know why I go to that, but I have to almost embrace the fact that people just know me as this is my size now.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's been 14 years since surgery, 13 years since I lost half the weight, and then more since. I probably a large percentage, 75% of the people I interface with daily now I've met since then. Neighbors that have moved in and out, people I interfaced with in town, things like that. They never knew. And they'll say something to me sometime like, I'll be eating, some snack or something. And they'll go, you're so lucky. None of that bothers you. Man, if you only knew. But,
I laugh because every now and then, I live outside of Philadelphia, so right now is like apple cider donut season. So I'll have one in a social setting because my daughters are at that age where like everyone's having bonfires. It's like, let's have this fall themed outing where the parents get together. And I get the same thing where it's like, oh, it must be nice to be able to have 2 donuts and not have to worry about your weight. And I almost want to grip them up and be like, you have no idea how hard it was for me to get to 2 donuts comfortably. You don't understand that I mapped out my macros today and had like a 200-gram egg white omelet for breakfast,
right.
a turkey sandwich on an egg white wrap for lunch, like lean ground beef chili for dinner, just so I could show up, have an adult beverage and 2 donuts, and know that I mapped out like one adult beverage and 2 donuts, and that was going to be my big night out.
You know, it reminds me when you say that sometimes you run into people that are maybe a year, 2 years into it since surgery, and they're lamenting how much they hear that story and say, "Boy, that's so much work," and think of it as an imposition. But this head game thing we play, I know it's part of my personality, so I hear that, and I'm like, damn, that's good. Thought out, planned out, visualized. But, you've got the vision, the inspiration, the whole picture of it. Now, you just got to do it. So I'll do it. That's the mentality that I think you're not cursed with having to do that. You're blessed with, being able to do it, both up here, and you hadn't killed yourself previously by overeating. I hear that. You're firing me up. That's right. I love it.
Yeah. I think it really is important that you build this lifestyle that you like, that you enjoy the foods that you eat. Like, someone may hear what I just said for my diet on a Saturday and be like, that sounds terrible. I really enjoy all of those foods. And I think that's where I wish I saw more people in the bariatric community realize that cooking is going to play such a big part in your life after weight loss surgery, and just understanding, here's what's going to work towards your macros. Here's what might help with your nutrition. Here's what's going to help you feel good or move good or get to a weight that you need. And I love the mindset that you talk about of, if you look at it as a curse or you look at it as a blessing, I really believe you're 100% right. And when I meet with potential clients, that's probably one of the canaries in the coal mine, I'll say, that I kind of like, we really have to visit that before we work together. Is, if you're going to look at planning your meals, mapping out your foods, finding recipes to be a pain, we might not be the best fit for each other. Because I think it is a big misnomer that bariatric surgery allows you to eat whatever you want and you will lose weight. And you've known from now 14 years that isn't the case.
Right. Exactly. I guess there's a couple of things that, like, these things aren't burdens, they're really empowerments. Who chooses how I eat? I do. Who makes sure it's the right thing for me for what I'm planning on doing tomorrow and into the future? I do. No one else does. There's 7 billion people in the world, and I am the one who makes that decision. Now, kind of silly because 6.999 million of them don't even know who I am, obviously. But the point isn't that as much as just you sit at the top of that decision tree on all your life-wide decisions that you have to make. What to eat, when to eat, why you're eating, what it's for, all those things. That's empowerment. That's why I think a lot of people, like you said, if you think bariatric surgery is going to do this for you, that's the first thing I have to hear to know you're not right for it. And because if your mind can't lead you through it, your body ain't going to follow. That's just simple. And you're just going to have spent a lot of money and gone through a lot of pain and suffering to no avail. You'll lose that weight in the first 5-6 months, just because you can't eat anything.
And then you'll gain it back in the next 15 to 16 months. Yeah.
Right. It'll all come back. And those great Instagram pictures we've been seeing will disappear. And it's sad. It's really sad. I hate seeing that. The other thing that it makes me think about is so many weight loss surgery people do not like or just announce, I hate to exercise. And there's some doctors, surgeons out there that actually even kind of promote that. You don't have to exercise at all.
I can never understand why, but you're not the first to tell me that. I've even heard some surgical centers say it's almost a bad idea to exercise. But then I will also say that I have met a lot of surgeons in person, and there's always that weird part where they will say, and this surgeon told me, and I'm like, I know that surgeon, and I know they don't say that. And what happens usually, I find, is the other end of the extreme as well, where they're like, I'm 2 days post-op and I want to go do Orange Theory, or I'm doing a 65-mile bike ride. And it's like, no, you're going to dehydrate yourself. Your doctor probably said, get a step goal and drink slowly. And all you heard was no exercise as well.
It could be. And what makes me sad when people are, like you said, you don't have to ride your bike across the country. And you don't have to run marathons. You don't have to do any of that. But in that triangle of the mind, body, and spirit, you're only as good as the weakest link. So if I'm feeding my body correctly, but not engaging my spirit or my body in physical realm, I'm leaving two legs of a three-legged triangle. I'm leaving them out. And you may be able to succeed for a while, but two things. One, it'll be very hard-fought wins, probably won't last, easier to relapse, all that. And two, you're missing out on the greatest gift of the weight loss that you can have, going out and using your body in ways that God intended or gave you the option for, and you messed up or helped, it was messed up when you gained weight. Now, you can go do it. I don't understand why somebody say, I don't want to exercise.
It's funny, or I get the other half where they're like, I love that you said that it's this holistic approach, because so many people I see struggle with this idea of like, just give me a meal plan and a workout and I should be fine. And it's like, no. You need to understand your relationship with food is going to probably drive. What would you say? Like, if you had to put a percentage of how much your mind drives your success after weight loss surgery, what would you put it at? Because I'd probably go 35%, maybe even 40%.
I say that you can't solve a downstream problem without fixing the upstream issue. So a lot of times, I met a woman once who said she was having gastric bypass because she was looking forward to losing her cravings for sugar. Well, I got bad news for you.
That comes back.
I got really bad news for you. It isn't going to touch that, but it's, you're going to permanently change your physiology. You were trying to solve an upstream problem with a downstream solution. It's the other way around. So in some ways, the mind, if I'm only got 20% of my mind in the game, mind, spirit, then the sum of me is only going to be operating at around 20%, the equivalent of the weakest component of me. So in a way, I want 100, 100, 100. So that's...
that math doesn't add up. So.
Right. So then I have to kind of divide it by thirds and say, yeah, I would agree with your number.
I give the slight edge to the mind on it. So I go 40, 30, 30, because I don't want to do 33.3 repeating, but I think you're 100% right. Where I've now probably met with 100 to 150 potential clients that I've worked with. And there's just certain things when you meet and talk that you can kind of get the feel from where their mindset is about all this, how well they're going to do, not just with you, but even if they choose not to work with you. And I think like that's probably the biggest thing I see, is where if you're looking at how quickly you can go back to eating cheesesteaks or pizza, I get that because I miss them as well. But if you're not understanding the why you want it back so quickly after removing 80% of your stomach, there's probably some head work that you have to do there. Were you always good mentally in your bariatric journey, or is that something you've had to really work on over the last 14 years?
When I sat down 14 and a half years ago to analyze what I should do, I kind of looked at the physiological, the psychological, emotional, and behavioral aspects of bringing calories into my body and burning calories off of my body to try to figure out where my problems lay. I didn't feel like I was at a disadvantage with my relationship with food I wasn't making up for some past trauma or replacing something else with food. I didn't feel that. I realized that when you do self-analysis, sometimes you end up with a quack for a doctor. But on the other hand, the greatest saying ever, know thyself. I analyzed myself. I said, I can't recognize any trauma, addiction, those kind of things. But I kind of gave them a 20% rating. I didn't have any really physiological. I didn't have the comorbidities were all related just to being big. Blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, those things. I didn't have any extreme issues on the energy burn side, the exercise side, and nothing that prevented me from eating well that way. Like I didn't have diabetes or something that would require me to eat a certain way. So the number one thing for me, what I rated 50% of my problem, was that I didn't have an off switch. I ate too much, and I just, try as I may, I could not stop. My fault, whatever. I don't care where you want to lay the blame. The fact was, I couldn't say no. So the idea of a restriction, especially a restriction that would give me time to learn a new way of living, sounded like a good answer. But if I would have thought, every time I have a fight with my wife or somebody, I eat, or whatever, and I'm not trying to diminish or make fun in any way of those kind of psychological things that go on. If I would have had that, I would have recommended myself, go get counseling, go deal with that. You still might end up with weight loss surgery, but maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you would discover how to knock the food out of your own hand. You used to be a dancer. You know what to do physically. The exercise side, I didn't really recognize the problem. I'd been through hospital-supervised diet programs, so I knew what to eat. It wasn't education, information problem. I didn't have a limited access to good food. I just ate too much. So for me, that's why gastric bypass, to me, even over the sleeve, was, I said, I want the best restriction I can get that'll give me the maximum amount of time that I can learn a new lifestyle. And one day I'll be able to tell my pouch, all right, I got it from here. Thanks.
I love that mentality. And you brought up a really good point, because I will say I'm the perfect cocktail of why I eat. There's a little bit of trauma back there. There's a little bit of, I really love to cook and I love good food. I used to joke like I didn't get to 365 pounds on McDonald's. Yeah, it was sprinkled in, but I love a decadent meal. But the third part that you said that I don't think I reflect enough upon is I have a hard time saying no. And it comes up a lot in my behavior and my relationship, that I've worked on re-identifying as a people pleaser to going to, I have people pleasing tendencies. And that means really getting close to having a hard stop or no. And a lot of the times I think that's with food as well. Like, that's another relationship where I will continue to eat because I'm like, I love this. This tastes good. I want more of it. And I will almost struggle with saying, you know what? Let my body catch up. Let me have that restriction and go. And bariatric surgery really did help me slow down my eating. It sounds so dumb, but until you've had this surgery, just even chewing your food, as I'm going to chew 25 times or put my fork down. They're those small little behaviors that you can work on that can really get you big results moving.
There's so many little tips like that too you learn along the way. I was actually only maybe 2 or 3 days away from surgery, and had a dinner meeting to go to. So, I'm sitting there with a bowl of water, basically. The guy that was, one of the guys that was with us was one of these 5'10", 155-pound guys, good looking, trim, farm looking boy, We all sat down, we all ordered. The food came, and I noticed him. The food came and sat in front of him, and he sat there for 5 minutes, looking around, asking people questions, talking to him, never grabbed his fork, never grabbed his knife, nothing. 5 minutes before he picked up his knife and fork and started to eat. And what that told me was, we're out to dinner. We're not out to eat. He was there for this. The meal was part of it, but this was what it was about. I, on the other hand, am almost eating off the plate as the waiter's putting it on.
Stabbing across, like, oh, you're not eating that? Let me see if that's okay.
Right. And that kind of, again, that mentality, maybe he's just a lucky beneficiary of genes that keep him 5 and 5'10". I don't know. But somewhere out there in those 7 billion people, there's a lot of people who they're that way because they behave like he did. It wasn't a rush to eat. It was a meal. Eating was a part of it. And then it was all, he didn't finish everything. He didn't eat fast. And I noted that. It was stuck with me.
I remember I was working at a job where it was a very executive level job where top people from the company would fly in or I would fly out for things. And I could never understand why they were always getting like the salmon, the string beans, or anything else. And living in Philadelphia, we're kind of a food capital. I'd like to think that we have a pretty good restaurant scene outside of cheesesteaks, but I would be trying to take them to these best restaurants, these decadent things, and they would get the same thing. And this was back when I was like 320 pounds. I wasn't at my heaviest. Sadly, 320 wasn't. But I just remember coming out of those meals and being like, we just went to one of the best Italian restaurants ever, and they got chicken and broccoli. And I was almost embarrassed for them that they ordered it. But then as I look back, I'm almost kind of envious of the fact of they were able to go to one of the best restaurants in Philadelphia, order chicken broccoli, feel comfortable, be there for this. If you're watching this on YouTube, I've converted Bill. He talks Italian now like me.
Right.
This is, we're waving our hands of, it's more the communal aspect of a meal as opposed to the actual dining. Although it's funny, even 4 years post-op, I still scout a menu both for like the healthy option, but also like, man, if I'm going to go out, which I don't do rarely anymore compared to my old life, I treat it like it's almost like last meal level, where it's like I'm getting the meal, I'm sitting and plating it, I am enjoying it and love it.
Yeah. Well, life does go on. You have to, the Dr. Sharma, best weight, his book, Best Weight, defines as the weight that you can live at, you can be at, and live your best quality of life that you can sustain. So, yeah, I could buff up and do this and be, yeah, maybe I could, but let's say I could. But do I want to?
You could, Bill. I guarantee if you really committed to it, with the discipline you have in every other aspect of your life, if you really said tomorrow, I'm going for like a bodybuilder physique, if I saw you 1 year from now, I have no doubt that you would be in shape and ready.
No, thank you, sir. Thank you. But, that's the thing. What it would take would be that year. And I have other things, it's sometimes you have to realize that I don't want to die perfect. I want to live a long time imperfectly rather than die perfectly tomorrow. So
I love that. And the idea of a best weight so important because I look at the 4 years post-op. My lowest weight ever was 210. And I want to say I was like 16 months out. Like I was pretty far along. But if you looked at my lifestyle, I was eating a chicken thigh I still remember this diet because that's how bad it was. It was like egg whites, like 2 egg bites, like sheet pan egg whites for breakfast. And then it was 2 chicken thighs for lunch. And then it was like a piece of cod for dinner. And it was depressing. And I would just eat that over and over and over again. And then sadly, I'd get to the weekends and I'd be like, well, I'm going to have vodka and water because that's the leanest way to drink. Like horrible disordered behavior. And then I would almost be thrilled to death because I would get blackout drunk. Wake up the next morning and I would be so dehydrated. I'd hop on the scale and be like, yes, I hit 210. And was like, that is not a healthy or appropriate way to live. And it was just very discouraging of doing that. And then this summer, I did a photo shoot for my coaching, and I shot a commercial for Penn Medicine. And I leaned out with the physique coach to 213, and that was unpleasant for different reasons. But we had a long-term plan of, look, it's for the shoot and go back. But I'm really happiest now at about 220, where I had 2 apple cider donuts Saturday. I'm having chili for dinner tonight, which I love. Like, I have this perfect balance where, could I be a little leaner? Probably, but I also get to have a burger every now and then when I want it and not feel that like it's off the table. What does your like day of eating look like at this point in your life?
I have a couple of issues besides the small tummy and the pouch for the gastric bypass. The reason my voice does this and whatnot is you can kind of see the scar here.
Mm-hmm.
I had a tumor removed from my neck. I left the right side of my throat paralyzed. My right vocal cord is dead, doesn't move. And the right side of my tongue is paralyzed. So I can't swallow very easily. Technically, I can't talk. Only reason I can talk is they went in right there and put like a cast, basically, on my right vocal cord so my left one can touch it.
Oh, wow.
The cool thing was I had to be awake while they did that.
Ugh.
That
You,
was cool.
you, in case anyone is wondering, I've always thought Bill's a better man than me. That's probably the final nail or the final scratch in the debate. How did you do that awake?
Well, they lay it down there, and they're over the top of you.
That alone, having someone like hovered like that would be enough for me to be like, I'm out.
2 doctors, because one, they both had to put their fingers into my throat. And like I said, I couldn't talk at all, but they're doing this and then they're doing that and they look and I'm thinking like, I can't talk.
Nope.
What? I'm talking, and they go, count for us. And they're moving it in. I'm like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, 5. Okay. And then when they got it there, they turned on the gas. I fell asleep and they sewed it in place.
Bless
But
you, man. Even hearing that, I'm like squirming in my chair for it.
I'll tell you what, when you can't talk at all, and
Mm-hmm.
my initials are BS. So I was born to talk. And when you can't talk at all, I mean, it's depressing. Getting this voice back, and it's never gonna. I tell people this is my English accent. This is my screaming voice. This is me whispering everything I can do. But it feels like I'm James Earl Jones compared to no voice at all. But to get back to your question,
But real quick, before we do, I will say again, ladies and gentlemen, why I love Bill, reason 789, his mindset of where anyone else could probably say, like, this is what my voice is. You look at it as, I am so lucky to have this level of a voice after what I've been through. So it's your mindset is second to none.
the other thing that, thank you for saying that. I wish I had my old voice, but I wish this hadn't happened. But we don't get that option to go backwards at all. It's only forward. The only option God gave us. So in this movement, in this journey forward with the voice thing in the throat, I've been timid about speaking out loud or being in front of groups of people, but I've done it. And I've never once had anything but a positive reaction or involvement from anybody. I used to go to the Taco Bell down the street when I had even less voice than this. I mean, I was whispering. First couple of weeks, month after surgery, after the throat surgery, I looked messy. I went in there, I would go in to get the beans, the refried beans. I could eat those. And the guy
It's
was
a
looking at
man
me.
favorite to talk about.
I know he thought I'm some old homeless or, they were like, sir, why don't you go sit down and we'll bring your food out to you? Sometimes they'd hear my voice and people would start signing to me, thinking I was deaf or I would act something out and they would think that.
So, Bill, just between you and me, how much free Taco Bell did you get after this surgery? Like, is this like a good hustle? that I could probably just start going in and being like,
I'll
hey.
tell you what, though, the kids, the young people behind the counter that most people would just assume were stoner, lightweight people, were the kindest, nicest, most considerate, but so were everybody else. I never ran into a problem. So I had more insights and more gifts and more wonderful events happen to me after this happened, such that I have to ask, if God came to me today and said, Bill, we'll take you back to where you were before with the voice, but you lose all the gifts and rewards that you've picked up along the way. I'm not saying I wouldn't take him up on it, but I'd be thinking about it. I'd say, can I have some time here? Can I have some time? Again, it's every challenge, the weight, trying to weight loss, fighting regain, fighting anything, fighting your mind, fighting all of it that's the secret of life, is confronting and dealing with those things, because inside of them is wisdom, rewards, gifts that enlighten you, that make your life what it's meant to be, or it can be. So I think it's kind of useless to look back at the challenges we faced before and fight them after they're either no longer an option for us, or we've already won. In a lot of cases, we've already won. Stop fighting when the enemy quits. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's such a great, serene way to look at things. And I kind of want to pivot into that a little bit. You speak for WLSFA, you do public speaking, you do so much for the bariatric community. I feel like every interview that people give, it's always about your weight loss journey. Can we talk a little bit about how you got involved as far as like becoming an advocate, starting to go out and public speak? Because I have to tell you, my first public speaking event, I was scared out of my mind. And this was after I had already won a national award from Kelly and Mel from our Sleep Life podcast. And next thing you know, it was I'm speaking at WLSFA one week. I'm shooting a pilot with Connie Stapleton the next week. I'm shooting a commercial for Penn Medicine. Like, it took off so quickly. How did you get started doing all that? And how did you build the confidence to kind of just make it look so effortless when I got to sit with you?
I think one thing that I benefited from was I live in Ohio, and I have for 35 years in Columbus area. But in 9, I started a new business with an old partner of mine up in Michigan. And Colleen and I got an apartment up there, kept our home here, but went up there. It was during my time up there that I had the surgery. And soon after, I came back to Ohio to live. I didn't have a hospital. My surgeon wasn't here. I wasn't a part of any group. I was basically on my own for 3 years, except I had done one thing that I would highly recommend everybody do as a pre-op. I found a 5-year and a 10-year post-op and became friends with them.
That's such a really good approach.
Say, hey man, my father used to tell me that a smart man learns from his own mistakes, but an even smarter man learns from the mistakes of others. Well, you're 5 years out, you're 10 years out, you've probably made them all. Save me the time. Save me that. Let me make a different mistake. And I communicated with them. One of them, Gene Garland, he told me, he said, Bill, anytime you're feeling defeated or down or wondering, I want you to go walk in the bathroom, stand in front of the mirror, look at the mirror, point at that guy and say, I'm doing this for you and you're worth it. I did that a dozen times in my first 2 years of my journey, when it was like, crap, I can't do this. And then walk in front of the mirror and just say, Bill, I'm doing this for you and you're worth it. It's just one of those things. That came from a 5-year post-op. No other 1-year post-op knew to do that or thought about that. So I wasn't interfacing with people at the same place as me where we're going back and forth about, well, my surgeon said, well, my program says, well, what about this? What about that? I wasn't even online then. I just weighed myself every day, did my charts and graphs, did the things I liked, found what worked, what didn't work. And about 3 years later, kind of went, oh, here's some groups. And I got involved and I saw that sometimes the level of the conversation just seemed lacking. It needed like, why is everybody talking at this level of, frankly, sometimes pettiness?
Yeah.
They said I took the easy way out. Well, I hope you did, because if you took the hard way out, why?
I never get that. It's such a tired thing of like you took the easy way out. It's like no one would ever say like, "Hey, like from Philadelphia to Atlantic City, we have the AC Expressway, and it is a very easy drive because you get on the expressway and it is just a straight shot. You can take 15 other roads that turn that are longer, maybe a little bit more scenic, but it's like you wouldn't say like, why are you taking the most efficient way to get to your goal in any other aspect of your life other than bariatric surgery?"
Yeah, and yeah, and any other thing. I use the example, I ride my bike. When I went from Columbus to Raleigh, I didn't go by Chicago. I went direct. Otherwise, I would have taken the hard way. No, I took the easy way. But anyway, I would use those kind of conversations and think, why are we talking about that when you are free from the prison of obesity and can do almost anything you want, and you're arguing about this?
I think because they're truly still a prisoner of their mind. It's that old phrase they say of I think in India they train elephants back in the day, where they take baby elephants and they cuff them to a post so that they know they can only walk in a circle, and then something like, and again, don't quote me for everything, but like after a year they take the pin out and the elephant stays perfectly in place because they've already created their own mental circle of how far they can go.
Exactly. Exactly. It's the way that's why when, like I said, with exercise, eating right's great, but moving your body and then the mind part too, I think it's important that we focus on all three of those things. Again, it's not you can lose weight just by focusing on body weight that way, but we're really out to improve our life, not just lose weight. I mean, everybody in the beginning says almost defensively, it's not about just losing weight. Well, in the beginning, I'm going to admit it was. I liked it. Weight drop like that, that's cool.
Let's be honest, it should 100% be about losing weight. You're removing like, I always think it's so like cliche when they're like, it's more than just losing weight. And I'm like, yes, it technically is, but it should absolutely be the number one driver. You don't get
And
80% of your stomach removed or your entire internal organs rewired to not lose weight.
and it may become a lesser and lesser important part of it. But yeah, when you start, you're not going to get to those better things without losing the weight. So yeah, I admit that right off the bat. But it's kind of interesting how my numbers move from numbers on the scale to blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, those numbers, and then how many laps, how many reps, what time, what distance, fitness. And I don't know quite how to number degrees of wellness, but after my weight, after my health, after my fitness, came this burst into like wellness where all three of those elements seemed to be all three plates were up and spinning at one time. All engines seemed to be working. And that's why, yeah, I feel like I describe myself as a freight train of unrepentant excitement running downhill. Don't try to derail me. I love this journey. And there's nothing going to slow it down. Especially, I'm not going to sully it by arguing, fighting, throat punching people because they said I took the easy way out or anything like that. Man, life is great. Let's go live it.
It really is. So seeing that in like your communities, seeing that in groups, what really made you say, hey, I need to speak out more, I need to make a direction? Because I feel like people don't understand how hard it is to build what you built
Well,
between community and everything else that you did.
for me, it's kind of like I say, I've always been a talker. I used to teach dance and gymnastics to kids. I mean, from the time I was 14, I did that. So as a 17-year-old, I was teaching 5, 6, 8, 10-year-olds in a classroom in front of their parents, dance and gymnastics. You have to be a pretty self-confident in your ability to communicate, project, interpret, all of that when you've got all these different people going. And I was a teenager, and that was my training, basically. Um, so to me, when I kind of drew the curtain open, I had about 3 years post-op and saw what I considered to be a lot of either not incorrect or bad information,
That's
but
fine. I'll say it myself. Incorrect and bad information is I'm thrown into Facebook groups, chats, or everything else, and I'm just like, that is 100% so wrong.
and as bad can be the incorrect. And I mean, I think I mentioned this before when at the WSA conference, but people will hear things like you need a food prep, and food prep is this way and it's done this way and so on. Bill, how did you food prep? Bill never food prepped. You never food prepped. Why? Well, I traveled for a living, so it wasn't practical. I couldn't do it. But if you ask yourself the question, why would your program tell you or suggest you should food prep? It's so that you're in control and managing ahead of time for decisions that you don't have to make at that time. So for me, okay, I'm going to be in Pittsburgh tomorrow. I know the diner over on the corner of 5th and 3rd. I know that guy because I would either have the people that work for me there or I got the number. In a lot of cases, I'm coming tomorrow night. Make sure I only get the broccoli and the meal I wanted,
You
the
found
meal
what
I
worked for you, yeah.
the meal I planned. I did my meal planning on the phone by calling Omar at Omar's Diner and telling him that piece of ham, that little lean piece and some broccoli. That's me. Don't listen to anything else I say when I come in. He said, okay, man. And that's a real life example, but that's using the idea of food prepping for its principle, not for its action, not for the way it's described. And so there's a lot of that. And I wanted to be able to say to people that had, especially people who had had surgery and were not seeing the results that they wanted, was to try to help them cut through not just the bad information, but the
The noise.
and the noise, yeah. And or look, I'm not saying that approach to it is the right answer. I'm saying my approach to it worked really well for me. But even better is if you kind of follow the process that I did to come up with my process, you'll come up with a totally different process, but you can use it. We talked before about planning. People, just give me a diet, just give me an exercise program. The problem with that is that it's your program, not mine.
Mm-hmm.
And when I fail at it, your program failed. I didn't fail. This program, your program failed, not me. So you have to own it. That's why, yeah, I would tell everybody, I can teach you how to come up with a plan, but you need to make your own plan.
And I think that's something very similar of how I coach clients is it really comes down to when I see them struggling with food, because like there's somewhere I'm like, hey, this is kind of how macros work. This is where you kind of want to get a range. Let's see how your first 2 weeks do on your own, just so I can see what are you eating, when are you eating, how are you eating, where your struggle is. And that's always really revealing, I think, in those first 2 weeks to just kind of see what are you doing now before I put my finger, like the butterfly effect, where it's like before I touch anything, let me just see what does 2 weeks look like. And I tell them, if you're eating 6 donuts, I don't even really care, but I need to know, are you eating 6 donuts a day, a week, a month, or a year? And again, no wrong answer, but I have to tailor it to you. And afterwards, we kind of have that open conversation of time, money, and effort. Which one do you have the biggest surplus for? For some clients, if it's that they have the time, it's like, okay, well, let's start on creating grocery lists, going grocery shopping, getting everything together. For other people, it's I have a lot of money. Like I have some clients who are doctors and lawyers who are like, look, I don't have a lot of time. I can't put a lot of effort into it. I want to buy a meal plan. And they get just as good a results as someone else because they're still being very conscious of what their 3 plates are that are spinning, to go back to your term.
Yeah.
And then being able to say, like, okay, if these 2 plates are spinning, I'm willing to outsource the third plate if that can keep me mentally free from doing things.
Excellent.
And I think having that honest conversation with, people we come across with makes a world of difference because it's the exact same thing. Like macros may not work for everyone. For other people, it might be like, look, if I can get a food delivery source brought to my house, that might be the best thing that works for me. For other ones, it's if I can get batch cooked protein shipped to my doorstep to feed my family and I just have to put a steam bag of rice and broccoli together, that works too. But crafting what's going to work for you, I think, is ultimately what you have to do for the reason you have of they need to own the results of their actions more so than the templates or guidelines that someone can give them.
And the key thing is you will own the results of your actions regardless of what they are. It's just what you won't like the results if you don't take the right action. That's what I like to say. I was the cause of my obesity, but the good news is I was the solution.
Yeah. I think that also comes when we get to the holidays or anything else. I always tell clients and people in the community, like, look, there's no wrong way to do a holiday, but you need to own your actions. There were holidays, like I remember my first Thanksgiving after bariatric surgery, and I had like a little teeny tiny piece of turkey. I had like it was depressing how little sweet potatoes and mashed potatoes were on the plate. But that was different than 3 years later when I'm having a massive turkey leg, a little bit of mashed potatoes and sweet potatoes. And it's like, look, I chose to eat on plan some Thanksgivings, other Thanksgivings. I'm kind of like, look, I'm letting this be a free for all because I don't live that way every day. But I own my actions and understand like the scale's going to probably reflect it tomorrow, one way or another. And that's kind of your ownership of your food and how everything develops from there.
Yeah, it's no different than every now and then I end up staying up all night for something. I know I'm going to pay a price. I know I have to get regular sleep. But every now and then, whatever the event is, I'm in. Same thing with having a drink. I rarely drink anymore at all. But I do like the taste of a nice red wine every now and then. It's fine. Like you said, best life. It's got to be, best way for best life. I don't feel like I've given up anything. I've accept bad habits or, whatever. I am. It's why I tell a story sometimes about I bumped into an old neighbor. A guy kind of was more of a competitor than a friend,
Frenemy, we call them as well.
At another neighbor's kid's wedding. He looked at me and he turned to the guy next to me and goes, "This is Bill. He's half the man he used to be." And I just, like that, said, no. I weigh half the weight I used to, twice the life I used to have. In fact, I'm 4 times the man I used to be. And I kind of walked away, mic drop,
Yeah.
But
you kind of have to every now and then because I think people say these things and they don't realize the audacity that they have to say them. And you're kind of like, you know what? I need to check you right now because I'm not doing the next 30 years of dealing.
Right. And in my case, I tell people, don't respond. Don't want to throat punch somebody. Don't do that. elevate. This whole journey is one of elevation. And so I'm not saying that to be mean to them, but I mean, that's the bottom line. It's just, I want to be in charge and in control and manage myself, not with a false sense that, I mean, ultimately I know the universe is in charge, but as much as I can influence the control on my life, give it to me. I want it as much as possible. And then I can enjoy the rewards and go out and do the things, live with the results, and be happy with myself.
It's the best way to look at it. Bill, I know we're getting close to the end. I want to respect your time, but real quick, what I like to do with everyone that I have on, even though you're the first one, I used to have an Instagram live series, so I want to keep the tradition going. My company's name is Busy Bariatrics, and we go through the busy method, and each letter stands for something. Can I rapid fire question you a whole bunch of things and just see what comes off the head of the great Bill Streetman on this one? So, first, the B stands for building habits. What's the best habit you built after bariatric surgery?
I think it's taking a long perspective on things. In other words, I didn't expect to lose 100 pounds in the speed that I actually lost it in. But I think the perspective, it's why when people worry about a little bit of regain, I think you've known what to do. You've done it before. You can do it again. When they ask the question, what should I do? Come on, you already answered that question by your lifestyle.
You know this.
Yeah. So I think perspective is the best thing I've learned. Well, I mean, not an event or what, but to the way you ask the question, perspective.
Yeah. All right. The U is for understanding nutrition. Best thing you've learned about nutrition after bariatric surgery?
It's more than just a saying, protein is your friend. I've had, especially with the throat and neck and other problems, for a lot of reasons, the way I eat influences whether I wake up feeling like crap or I wake up ready to go. And protein is often at the source of that. Second, salt. You got to get enough salt. Those two things. I thought I ate a lot of protein before I really started counting it. Once I started counting it, I realized I don't need a lot of protein at all.
It's always funny when we start our clients tracking and they're like, oh, I totally get enough protein. I'm like, you're actually like hitting about a quarter of what you think you are.
Right.
And they're like, ooh.
Right.
And then it becomes like very revelatory. All right. S, best way to stay active after bariatric surgery?
Well, I would say sex because it starts with an S. And now that you're skinny, you can do it all you want. But that's hard to do in public. So I think that actually, I would tell you the two best things: walk to the gym and lift weights.
And I love that because that's literally what I did before we did that. I have a local gym in town. I live in your small Jersey town that you can walk to the gym. I lifted my weights and came back to here. Love it.
That's the secret to life right there.
Really is. All right. Why? How have you put yourself first after bariatric surgery?
Well, that's an important one because it's actually my first principle of reclaiming your priorities. They say that you can only serve one first priority, obviously. They conflict. You only have time for one. And the one that wins is usually the easier, sexier, happier, whatever one. So for me to make the way I eat or the way I move my body the choice, I had to find ways that I looked forward to or I enjoyed, or things, my rewards in them, so that when I was confronted with things this isn't true now because schedule changed, but for 8 years of my journey, on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday morning at 9:15, I was in gym class with my instructor, Lynn Avagino, who's one of my heroes. I only missed 3 classes in 8 years. One was because I was on a multi-state bike ride. I guess I can be forgiven.
I think that's fair.
One was for a funeral. The other one I just missed. But it's a matter of priority. People, Bill, let's have breakfast tomorrow at 9:15. Nope, can't. I'm going to be in the gym. because I loved it. I was the only guy in the class of about 15. We had our own coffee group, we got together. It was the two options. Which one you're going to do? I'm going to see my gals and work out. So you just make it the sexy thing. You make it the happy thing. You make it the thing that you would pick over the other thing. And then you live that way. I use the term that I think I coined it. I live by design and election. I design the way I want to act or behave, and then I elect to follow that. And it's again, two things, time for only one. Well, by design, I'm going to work out, so I like to do that. I'll do this later.
Love it. Now, there's an extra caveat. There's actually an exclamation point at the end of busy, and it stands for healthy source of dopamine. What is your favorite healthy source of dopamine? Like your way to relax, de-stress that keeps you on point after bariatric surgery?
Speaking, I definitely, if I do a 45-minute or an hour, or when I lecture at Otterbein University here in town, when it's over, it's like the electricity. You're just, it's such an empowering feel. But as far as just a singular activity anybody could do, I don't care how tired, sore, down I feel. If I go down my basement and lift weights, I come upstairs and my wife has to hear it, but I go, I love that. I'm charged up. Look at that. I pose. I take my shirt off. She's like, yep.
I think my wife is thrilled to death that I go to a gym now, because that was me my first 2 years, where I would come running up the steps from the basement and be like, let's go. And she's just like, you can go out the door.
Yeah, it definitely gets, my mind is clear. I mean, I love the ache of feeling of having just lifted the weights and just did the workout. I love the feel on my body. It's a tiring, it's been worked.
So
But
good.
it's like anything. It's kind of like same thing if I ride my bike up a mountain. You're staring at it, you're thinking, can I do that? Riding it, and you're thinking, why did I do this? But you get to the top and you feel like, damn, I'm good. That's like, wow, that was awesome. Of course, you don't go down and do it again. It's like anything. It's the reward for having done it, or for trying it even.
Really such an awesome way to end on that. Bill, is there anything else you want to leave us with? Parting words, shameless plugs, anything else before we call it a night for this?
I do have one shameless plug. I did write a book.
How did I not know that?
I have a copy. It's because nobody knows that. I just got it. This is not the cover, but this is the book. It's just, I got a proof copy to read and look at it, and I have to finish the cover design, which I've kind of started. But anyway, I'm hoping that it'll be available around Thanksgiving.
Please let us know, because I will absolutely drop a link in the show notes for that. How did you not start with that? Like, we went an hour and 5 minutes and like, oh, by the way, I wrote a book. Okay, now we can't really end on that. What is the book about? And how long is it taking you to write that? Simple, not easy. Read the rest of it, because we're having a little bit of a blur here.
The story of my escape from obesity and my lifestyle transition with the aid of gastric bypass. The process I followed to create my lifestyle change, and an outline others can follow to develop their own personalized plan.
Oh my God. So is this the first of your speaking tour? Was I like the kickoff to the book tour then?
No, I don't think I hadn't thought of it that way, but, and, you asked, I wasn't going to bring it up, but I'm kind
Always
of
so
proud of
humble.
it. It's
All right.
cathartic. It really is cathartic. Writing, and as my voice kind of got taken away some, my desire to write got ramped up quite a bit. And if you read it, you'll know that I write kind of the way I talk.
That's kind of how I come off in all my posts in long form as well. Bill, I got to tell you, I can't wait to read it. I'm probably going to buy one because I believe I got to tip you a little bit, but I also can't wait to get like my signed copy as well. But again, thank you so much for just being an inspiration to me, making it look so easy, even though I know you put hard work in every day, and for taking time out of your day and to do everything you do for the bariatric community. Again, thanks. And as always, keep getting busy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your kind words and all that you do to bring attention to it also. I wish everybody peace and all the best.
Thanks, buddy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, wait, hold up. We just got to stay 2 seconds. I had to stop recording and then we had to load it up.